Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe and hit the bell icon for new updates. Burt Lancaster finally talks about Chuck Connors. Burt Lancaster was born Burt and Stephen Lancaster on November 2, 1913 in New York City. He grew up on the tough streets of East Harlem. He was raised in a working-class Irish-American family. Lancaster loved sports and performing from a young age. He was a great athlete who got a free ride to New York University, but he quit during his second year. Instead of going to school, he put his energy into gymnastics. He joined the K Brothers Circus as an acrobat. This early job doing physical stuff would help him later in life. It made him look athletic on screen and helped him do tough physical roles easily. Lancaster got into Hollywood in an unusual way. After he served in World War II with the U.S. Army, where he was part of the Special Services Entertainment Unit, a talent agent found him while he was acting in a Broadway play. His first movie role came in 1946, when he starred in The Killers, with Ava Gardner. The movie was a dark and stylish crime film based on a short story by Ernest Hemingway. It was a big hit and made Lancaster famous almost overnight. From that point on, he became a popular leading man known for his good looks, bright blue eyes, and natural charm. What made Burt Lancaster different from many other actors was not only his physical strength and tough charm, but also his willingness to take on complex, often controversial roles. He refused to be typecast, and instead tried many different characters across different types of movies. He starred in tough dramas, big epics, gritty westerns, romantic tragedies, and bold political thrillers. One of his early successes was From Here to Eternity in 1953, where he played the tough but emotionally troubled Sergeant Warden. His acting, especially in the now famous beach scene with Deborah Kerr, is still one of the most memorable in movie history and got him his first Academy Award nomination. In 1960, Lancaster won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his powerful acting in Elmer Gantry. He played a charming but morally flawed traveling preacher. The role was different from his earlier heroic characters and showed his range as a dramatic actor. He was also praised for his roles in movies like Birdman of Alcatraz in 1962, The Leopard in 1963, and Atlantic City in 1980. The last one got him his fourth Oscar nomination. His acting in Atlantic City as an aging, washed-up gangster struggling to find meaning in a rapidly changing world was considered a late career triumph and proved his reputation as one of the finest actors of his time. Lancaster was also a pioneer, behind the scenes. In a time when actors rarely had creative control over their careers, he started the production company Hecht Lancaster in the 1950s. This move let him have more control over his projects and gave him the chance to support socially conscious films. Through his company, he helped make influential works like Marty in 1955, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture and broke new ground with its portrayal of working-class life. Lancaster's commitment to social issues went beyond the screen. He was an outspoken supporter of civil rights and was known for taking principled stands on political issues. He took part in the 1963 March on Washington, was critical of McCarthyism, and supported many progressive causes throughout his life. Lancaster kept acting well into the 1980s and early 1990s, bringing his dignity to roles in television and film. His final film appearance was in Field of Dreams in 1989, where he played Moonlight Graham, a small but important role that showed his quiet dignity and grace. It was a fitting goodbye to the screen, as Lancaster's character represented lost dreams and the healing power of memory, a theme that touched audiences and reflected Lancaster's own lasting impact on Hollywood. Burt Lancaster, the famous American actor known for his physical presence, intense acting, and deep involvement in social and political causes, had a complex personal life marked by 3 marriages and raising 5 children. Each of these relationships showed different sides of the man behind the movie star, highlighting his passions, personal struggles, and changing identity over the course of his life. Lancaster's first marriage was to June Ernst, a talented trapeze acrobat whose background was deeply rooted in the world of circus performance. Ernst was not only a skilled aerialist in her own right, but also the daughter of a well-known female trapeze artist. The two met during Lancaster's own early career as a circus performer. Before he was an actor, Lancaster had been drawn to the daring and physically demanding life of the big top, and his marriage to Ernst strengthened that commitment. Together, they toured with various circuses, doing elaborate and dangerous routines high above the ground without safety nets. It was a physically demanding lifestyle that required strict discipline and complete trust between partners. Their relationship, both personal and professional, did well under the bright lights and canvas tents of the traveling circus circuit. However, as Lancaster's goals began to shift toward acting and stage work in New York, cracks began to appear in the marriage. By the late 1930s, the couple had separated, though they were reportedly still legally married for several more years. The exact date of their divorce is unclear. Some sources list 1940 as the year they officially parted ways, but others, including several later biographers, have suggested that legal proceedings may not have been finished until as late as 1946. This difference is important, because it would overlap with the period when Lancaster was courting and eventually marrying his second wife, causing some speculation about the legal and emotional complications involved in moving between these two major relationships. Lancaster's second marriage was to Norma Anderson, a bright and politically engaged woman who brought a sense of stability and intellectual partnership to his life. The two met during World War II under unusual circumstances. While serving with the U.S. Army in Italy as part of the Special Services Entertainment Division, Lancaster attended a USO production where Anderson, originally a stenographer, had stepped in as an emergency replacement for a sick actress. According to a romantic and often repeated story, Anderson caught sight of Lancaster from a distance as she arrived at the airport and asked an officer nearby, "Who is that good-looking officer? And is he married?" Her question started a chain of events that led to a blind date that very evening. The two quickly fell in love, and they married in 1946, shortly after the war ended. Norma was not simply a movie star's wife. She was a committed activist, passionate about civic engagement and social justice. A lifelong member of the NAACP, she dedicated herself to causes ranging from voting rights to racial equality. The couple's home in the upscale Los Angeles neighborhood of Bel Air included an entire room that Norma converted into a hub for activism. This space was crammed with typewriters, printing presses, reams of paper, and mailing supplies, all tools she used to coordinate large-scale efforts for the League of Women Voters. She was particularly involved in organizing political fundraisers and educational campaigns, and Lancaster supported many of these efforts publicly and financially. In Intertwined, one of the most notable moments of their shared activism, the couple hosted a fundraiser at their home for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in the lead-up to the historic 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. This event showed the couple's shared commitment to civil rights at a time when doing so could still be controversial, especially in the entertainment industry. Together, Burt and Norma had 5 children, and each followed their own path, shaped by the combination of their parents' creativity, activism, and fame. Their son, Bill Lancaster, became both an actor and a screenwriter, best known for writing the screenplay to The Bad News Bears in 1976 and working with director John Carpenter on The Thing in 1982. James, another son, chose a more private life. Their daughter Susan kept a low public profile, while Joanna worked behind the scenes in the entertainment industry as a film producer. Their youngest, Sina, pronounced Sheila, shared her mother's activist spirit and occasionally appeared alongside her parents at political functions and public causes. Despite the vibrant family life, however, the marriage between Lancaster and Anderson became strained over time. The pressures of Hollywood stardom, the actor's frequent absences due to filming, and his reputation for extramarital affairs all contributed to growing tension. By 1966, the couple had formally separated and their divorce was finalized in 1969, ending more than 2 decades of marriage. Following his separation from Norma, Lancaster entered into a long-term relationship with Jackie Bone, a hairdresser who had been working on the set of The Professionals in 1966, one of his most iconic Western films. Their romance was intense and passionate, but also notoriously volatile. Bone was known for her fiery temper and reportedly had a powerful influence on Lancaster. Their relationship was marked by dramatic highs and lows. One infamous incident occurred during a dinner with director Sidney Pollack and actor Peter Falk, where an argument between Lancaster and Bone got so heated that she allegedly smashed a wine bottle over his head. Despite such extreme clashes, the relationship lasted for several years, fueled by both emotional dependency and mutual attraction. Ultimately, it was not violence, but spiritual differences that drove them apart. Bone underwent a religious conversion during their time together, an experience that deeply changed her worldview. Lancaster, a self-declared agnostic or skeptic, for most of his life, found that he could not reconcile his beliefs with her newfound faith, and the couple eventually parted ways. In the final chapter of his romantic life, Lancaster married for a third and final time. In September 1990, at the age of 77, he wed Susan Martin, a woman who had known and worked with him for several years. Their relationship was quieter and more private than his previous ones, offering him companionship and emotional support during his final years. which were marked by declining health. By that point, Lancaster had survived a series of health scares, including a quadruple heart bypass surgery and a devastating stroke in 1990 that left him partially paralyzed and largely out of the public eye. Martin remained by his side throughout. These difficulties and their marriage lasted until Lancaster's death on October 20th, 1994. For decades, fans of classic American cinema and television have wondered about the nature of the relationship between two of Hollywood's most iconic tough guys, Burt Lancaster and Chuck Connors. Both known for their imposing physicality, all-American charisma, and commanding on-screen presence, they carved out parallel yet distinct careers during Hollywood's golden age. Though their paths occasionally crossed in the industry, and they shared mutual friends, neither man ever spoke publicly at length about the other, until now. In a rare discovered interview from the final years of his life, Burt Lancaster finally broke his long-standing silence about Chuck Connors. The result is a fascinating glimpse into the mutual respect between two complex-driven men who understood each other more than the public ever knew. Lancaster began the conversation by acknowledging the unique bond he felt with Connors, not as a fellow actor, but first and foremost as a fellow athlete. "You know," Lancaster said with a nostalgic smile, "Chuck and I came from the same cloth. We were athletes before we were actors. That shapes a man differently." Burt Lancaster had been a college athlete and a circus acrobat before breaking into acting, while Chuck Connors famously played both professional basketball with the Boston Celtics and professional baseball with the Brooklyn Dodgers and Chicago Cubs before making his name in television. According to Lancaster, this shared physical background gave them an unspoken understanding in a town where image often outweighed grit. "I respected him immensely," Lancaster admitted. "Not just because he could throw a baseball or handle a rifle, but because he brought that discipline and focus to his craft. Hollywood's full of phonies. Chuck wasn't one of them." Lancaster went on to praise Connors' work on The Rifleman, the groundbreaking television series that made Connors a household name. "I thought The Rifleman was one of the most underrated shows on TV," Lancaster said. "It wasn't just about a man and his gun. It was about morality, responsibility, raising a son in a tough world. Chuck brought this quiet integrity to Lucas McCain. You believed him. You believed he could be tender with his boy and still take on a gang of outlaws." Lancaster confessed that while he didn't watch much television in general, he made a point of tuning into The Rifleman whenever possible. Chuck had a naturalism that a lot of actors spend their whole lives chasing. He wasn't trying to be a star. He was trying to tell the truth, and there's a bit of a connection here. Don't miss our South Sea Woman from 1953. What surprised many fans was Lancaster's revelation that he and Connors nearly worked together on a film project in the late 1960s, a gritty western that ultimately fell apart during pre-production. "There was a script we both loved. It was about two aging outlaws, men with a history, coming to terms with what they'd done and what they'd become," Lancaster revealed. "Chuck was supposed to play my younger brother. It would have been dynamite, but the studio got nervous about casting two TV Western types together in a more psychological story." Although the film was never made, Lancaster admitted it was a great disappointment for him. "That's one of the few roles I still think about. I think we would have surprised a lot of people." In Hollywood, where politics and power often dictate who rises and who falls, Lancaster also admired Connors' refusal to play the game. "Chuck didn't schmooze," Lancaster said with a chuckle. "He didn't do the party circuit, didn't curry favor with the press. He showed up, did his job, and went home. You couldn't buy his loyalty, and you couldn't shake his character. That kind of man doesn't always thrive in Hollywood, but Chuck found his way." Lancaster, who was himself known for a fiercely independent streak, founding his own production company and taking political stances others avoided, saw Connors as a kindred spirit. "We both fought to play the parts we believed in, and we didn't let the studios push us around. That's not easy, especially when you've got mouths to feed and reputations to protect." Though they were never close personal friends, Lancaster recalled several encounters with Connors that stuck with him. "We met a few times at benefits for veterans groups and children's hospitals. Chuck was generous with his time. No cameras, no press, just showing up because he cared." Lancaster also recalled Connors visiting sick children in hospitals, dressed as Lucas McCain, complete with his signature rifle. Something that touched Lancaster deeply. "We had different circles, but our values overlapped," Lancaster said. "Discipline, hard work, decency. That's why I respected the man." By the time of the interview, Chuck Connors had already passed away in 1992. Lancaster, who was in declining health himself, seemed thoughtful as he looked back. The thing about Chuck is he didn't leave behind scandal or bitterness. He left behind characters people loved and a reputation for being a good man. That's more than most of us can say. With that, Lancaster paused. His voice softened. I told him all this when he was still around, but maybe he knew. In breaking his silence, Burt Lancaster revealed not only his views on Chuck Connors, but also his own values and hopes as an actor and a man. The two may not have shared the spotlight together, but in many ways their legacies are intertwined, bound by mutual respect, silent friendship, and a shared commitment to authenticity in a town too often built on illusion. Lancaster died at his apartment in Century City, Los Angeles, after having a third heart attack at 4:50 a.m. on October 20th, 1994. His body was cremated, and his ashes were scattered under a large oak tree in Westwood Memorial Park, which is located in Westwood Village, California. A small square ground plaque amid several others inscribed Burt Lancaster 1913 to 1994 marks the location. As he had requested, no memorial or funeral service was held for him.